Hi, this is JJV The Storyteller, coming at you once again, as I usually do with topics, but we always talk about my book, Can't Nobody, by JJV The Storyteller, available on Amazon.com. Okay, so I come to you with different thoughts, whether it's something I've heard, whether it's a motivation, whether it's current news. I think that sometimes we have information going over the news media to distract us from the real situation. For instance, P. Diddy, Sean Puffy Combs, Puff Daddy, as I remember him, he attacked a coach, one of his sons, Justin's coach at UCLA, his football coach. Distraction. Just like Rachel Dolezal in wanting to be black or pass as black. Distraction. Personally, all of the talk about the flag, I feel is another big distraction. But I'm gonna take some time and just talk a little bit about that. I'm gonna talk about the real issue, or what I see the real issue is. Okay, so we have people saying that the Confederate flag should be flown. It's a memory of what's happened as part of our history. Then we have other people saying no. Definitely no flag because of what it represents. And actually, I can see both sides. But if we want to talk about a flag being as part of history, maybe it belongs in the history books, maybe a museum. But I kind of relate more so to the people, because I know when I personally see the flag, I think of slavery, I think of oppression, I think of killings. I think of rapes, I think of beatings, yes, all this done to our slaves, my ancestors. I want to just go back. I remember going to the African Museum of History. I may have the wrong name, but it was located in Baltimore, Maryland. And by the time I was halfway through the museum, I was in tears. I came out shaking. I also want to tell you about the time that I went to the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem. By the time I came out, I was crying and I was shaking. So related back to the flags, when I think of Confederate flags, I think of slavery and everything that was done to us. When we talk about the Nazi flag, people are saying, well, you can't compare the Nazi flag, the swastika, to the Confederate flag. Oh, yes, I can. And millions and millions of people in Germany can also. That is why the flag is not legal in Germany. People say you can't compare the two because there was extermination, annihilation, people put in concentration camps and killed. Yes, slaves were not put in concentration camps, but there were a lot of slaves killed. Those that rebelled, those that would get caught reading, worshiping. So I see it as the same. So for me, flag is a big problem. I walked into a convenience store in Mississippi and they had those Confederate flags hanging everywhere. I walked right out. I was not going to give any money to someone that supported the flag and obviously supported what the Confederate flag stood for. And I want to say stood for because the flag itself is not evil, but what it represents can be evil. And in America, normally when we see the swastika or we see the Confederate flag, it's usually towards racism, discrimination, some sort or some type of white supremacy. So Rush Limbaugh was saying the next thing we'll do is we'll have people saying we should take down the American flag because Americans depressed, they repressed people or oppressed people, and yeah, like a lot of Americans that are native to America, the Native Americans. Yeah, that's probably true. The American flag, you know, we raised it, we killed, we raped, etc. But by far the majority, that's not what the American flag stands for. I believe most people would say it stands for freedom, it stands for opportunity, etc. Although we know that a lot of people are far from freedom and don't get a lot of the opportunities. But I won't go into that right now. That's another subject for another day. But when people think of America, they think of the land of opportunity. I travel a lot. I travel extensively across the globe, and everyone wants to get to America. I will not give my opinion on that, but I'll just leave it at that. So the representation, though, if you pull a Confederate flag and a Nazi flag, that is not, it's not a thought of opportunity or anything positive. But this discussion is still a distraction. I want to give big props to Walmart. I think they were one of the first retailers that went out and said, we are not going to sell the flag. Sears followed, and there are a number of other followers. Recently, the state of Alabama decided to take the Confederate flag down. Big props to you. So everybody that's moving in that direction, give big props to you. Again, this is not the real issue. The real issue is race relations in America. There is a problem. I don't have the answers. I don't know how it can be solved. But worrying about issues like Rachel Dolezal, the Confederate flag, these are only ancillary issues. These are not the real issues. This is not what we need to attack. We need to figure out, how do we change perception of race in America? Yes, we've had a lot of beatings of young black men by police officers. That's an issue. We have a high unemployment of young African Americans. That's an issue. We have schools where they are not getting an equal education because of the tax base. That's an issue. We have the highest population of Latinos and African Americans in prisons. Those are issues. These are real race issues that we need to address and figure out what can we do to solve it. And I think it starts at a very basic area. Of course, it starts at home. But guess what? Those kids go home into school. We need to address the issues of our school. Interesting enough, Dylan, the young 21-year-old man, going in and killing based on a racial discrimination, racial biases, that's starting maybe a discussion, but I have not heard anyone talk about real issues. Why don't we learn to love instead of hate? Why don't we learn to combat hate with love? My hats went off to the people that stood in front of the judge and said, I forgive you, Dylan. I would have been more impressed if they said, I forgive you, Dylan, and I love you, and God does too. Nonetheless, that was a step in the right direction, forgiveness. Well, I'm going to end it all there. I just want us to think about what can we do as a people to show love for others. What can we do to improve race relations? And guess what? It doesn't start with the government. It doesn't start with schools. It can start right with us. With that, remember, Can't Nobody, JJV The Storyteller, available on Amazon.com. Peace.